The sutras often tell us where they happened, but not when. Even the sutra we chanted just now, the Buddha's first sermon, which we believe was given during the full moon in July, doesn't say that. It's a later tradition. But one of the exceptions is the Anapanasati Sutta, the sutta about mindfulness of breathing. It was given on the full moon of the very last night of the rains. Now the rains retreat ends 1 month before the end of the rainy season. So that the monks can have time to go around and get their robes done before they head out on the cold season. But the Buddha has a allowance that if things are going well in the Sangha, the practice is going well, people are making good progress, that they can delay the Pavarana, the night of invitation, either 2 more weeks or another month, to allow their good community to continue practicing and making more progress. And that's what happened that year. At the end of the rains retreat, the Buddha said, let's stay on for another month. So they did. And he gave his reason that the monks were practicing well. There were monks who were becoming stream enterers, once returners, non-returners, arahants. And even those who weren't gaining the noble attainments were making good progress in their meditation. So on the last night of the rainy season, i.e. tonight, he gave a long talk in celebration of what they had done. It's a sutra that affirms the principle that even though the Buddha extolled living alone, still there was value in living together, when everyone is working together toward the goal, helping one another toward the goal. It's an important part of our lives as practitioners. So it's in celebration of that. They gave a very long sermon on what the different monks were practicing. They mentioned the wings to awakening, various meditation topics, but then he goes into detail only on one, which is mindfulness of breathing. He mentions the 16 steps, which fall into 4 tetrads. The first one has to do with the body. You breathe in and out, you discern when the breath is long, you discern when it's short. Then you train yourself to breathe in and out, sensitive to the whole body. And then you calm what the Buddha calls bodily fabrication. In other words, the in and out breathing. Now why he calls it that, he doesn't say. It's probably because he wants you to start thinking in terms of fabrication, how the mind puts together its experience in the present moment. And bodily fabrication, the way you breathe, is an important part. We talked about this today, how emotions can hijack your breath, then hijack the whole physical process in the body. Make you feel you've got to do something to get that emotion out of your system. Or you can turn around and choose different ways of breathing to calm things down, and that will have an impact on how you fabricate your present moment. That's the first tetrad. Second tetrad has to do with feelings. You breathe in and out, training yourself to be sensitive to rapture, sensitive to pleasure, to be sensitive to mental fabrication, which are perceptions and feelings. And then you calm mental fabrications. Again, think about how you're shaping your mind state by the perceptions you hold in mind. You can think about the things that will get you all upset. All kinds of perceptions get you upset about what's going on in the world right now, what's going on in your life, or in the lives of those who are dear to you. Or you can stop and create other pictures that are just as true, but calm you down. Or even directly staying with the breath. There are ways of perceiving the breath that are calming, both for the breath and the mind. You You can perceive the breath as the air coming in and out through the nose, or you can perceive it as the sense of energy in the body, which is more calming. Oh, it's the whole body energy that allows a sense of well-being to spread through the body. So try that. That's the second tetrad. The third tetrad deals directly with the mind. First you breathe in and out, sensitive to the state of your mind. You come from the day, you come from your dreams. All kinds of things can be influencing your mind right now. So where is your mind? What does it need? And the remaining steps deal with getting the mind to counteract whatever is out of balance. You can gladden the mind as you breathe in, breathe out. You can steady and concentrate the mind as you breathe in, breathe out. You can release the mind from whatever thoughts oppress it as you breathe in, breathe out. But the important thing is you get a sense of what does your mind need in order to stay with the breath. Because these first three tetrads, it's not the case that you do one, and then you do the second, and then you do the third. You're doing all three together at the same time. You're with the breath, well, what are you going to feel? You have feelings of pleasure or pain. You've got the mind state that either stays with the breath or doesn't stay with the breath. But the three tetrads are useful ways of looking at if things are going well, you try to keep them together. If they're not going well, you try to figure out what's the problem. Is it with the breath? Is it with the feelings? Is it with your mind state? And the Buddha gives you ideas on how to deal with these things. The fourth tetrad has to do with mental qualities or Dhammas. In this particular case, you breathe in and out, focused on inconstancy. You breathe in and out, focused on dispassion. You breathe in and out, focused on cessation. And breathe in and out, focused on relinquishment. This is an expansion of the last step of the third tetrad, releasing the mind. Whatever it is that's causing trouble with your mind, you try to look to see how it's inconstant. That, of course, includes once it's inconstant, you look for the stress that it's creating. You see if it's inconstant and stressful, is it really worth holding on to? We're here looking for ways to create long-term welfare and happiness. And if something is inconstant and stressful and not yours, then it's not what you're looking for. Look for something else. We don't usually think in those terms, but it's a useful way of thinking. An emotion comes up in the mind. You feel, well, this is how I really feel about this, and it just takes over. But you can ask yourself, is this what I'm here for? Just to be driven around by my emotions? Well, no. So try to take it apart. And this is where thinking in terms of fabrication gets useful. There's bodily fabrication, the way you breathe, mental fabrication, perceptions, images, labels you hold in mind, and then the one kind of fabrication that's not mentioned in the instructions, verbal fabrication, where you talk to yourself. But the instructions themselves are an example of how you talk to yourself. So I will breathe in this way, I will breathe in that way. So you want to see if there's something that's overwhelmed your mind. You can ask yourself, how does the way I breathe make me feel overwhelmed? How does the way I talk to myself make me feel overwhelmed? How does the way I image things in my mind and the feelings I focus on, how does that make me feel overwhelmed? I don't need that. I can construct these things in a different way. This is why we have all those texts by the Buddha. Sometimes you see things reduced to lists, as if that were the heart of what the Buddha taught. But there's so much in the sutras where he's giving you ways of talking to yourself. He's recommending ways of imaging things to yourself. He's even telling you how to breathe. In other words, how to fabricate your experience in a better way. So those are the 16 steps. But the Buddha doesn't stop there. He points out, as I said, that when you're focused on the breath, you've got body, feelings, mind states, and mental qualities all right there. When you've got them all together like that, then as the mind gathers together, you develop the factors for awakening, starting with mindfulness. Then on top of that is analysis of qualities. In other words, how you would look at the way you're fabricating things right now, and asking yourself, is this skillful, is this not? If it's not skillful, well, what alternatives do you have? And then there's persistence. You try to abandon what's unskillful and develop what's skillful. When you do this well, there's a sense of fullness, rapture, refreshment. We think of skillful and unskillful simply as duties to be developed and abandoned. But remember, we're doing it for a sense of refreshment for the mind. Learning how to delight when unskillful things lose their power. Skillful things begin to take hold. With that sense of refreshment, there's a sense of calm. From the calm, there comes concentration. As the mind gets concentrated, it settles into equanimity. The equanimity that comes when your needs for a sense of inner well-being have been met, and you can view yourself, you can view the world with a lot more stability. And it's based on these 7 qualities that we gain release. So it's all there in breath meditation. And John Fuang summarizes it by saying, the breath can take you all the way to unbinding. Here the Buddha sets out the steps by which that happens. But it's all there in those 16 steps. When you do the 16 steps, the 4 establishings of mindfulness are there. When you do the 4 establishings of mindfulness, the 7 factors for awakening are there. It's all there in how you relate to your breath, in line with those 16 steps. So it's good to know those. This is one of the practices that had that community of monks on such good terms that they extended their rains retreat. Usually at the end of the rains retreat, monks can't wait to get away. They've been cooped up for 3 months, can't go anywhere. But here is a case where, staying together, they were helping one another in really substantial ways. So we should think of this as an ideal. It's one of the reasons why the Buddha has us divide the year into times when we're together and times when we're off on our own. You want to see that both have their advantages. When you're off on your own, you're confronted by a lot of things that you're not confronted with as you live together. It's just you and you. When things are not going well, you can't blame anybody else. That makes you confront your defilements. When you're together, you can take advantage of other people's wisdom. This is why the Buddha had us divide the year in these ways. So on a night like this, it's called the water lily moon. We in America have the different names for moons, full moons. In India, this is the one that's called the water lily moon. They have these white water lilies that bloom this time of year. I happened to be in India years back to visit the Buddhist holy sites, and it was just this time of year, beginning of November. And sure enough, in the ponds by the railroad tracks, ponds here, ponds there, the water lilies, white water lilies were all blooming. And the white of the flowers reflected the white of the moon. It's a lovely time of year. So given that this is one of the few sutras where we know what time of year it was given, it's good to mark that. We don't know which year it was. But the principles are timeless. So you don't practice meditation or breath meditation only on this night. But on this night it's a good time to reflect on all the people who benefited from this practice. And here's your opportunity to add yourself to that list.